So, Aisha, let's briefly talk about Elon Musk. I know you were asking why the thumbnail for this video was showing you with Elon Musk. Yes, Elon Musk actually has autism spectrum disorder. He has.
Can't my child be like any other child? Our enemies and the one that caused our children to be in that format. He got very aggressive. He used his fist and hit me on my head. My colleagues saw, so she was repeatedly pinching herself and then pinching people around her. They just believe that, okay, she's not smart enough. Put her at the back. Was a drive in me that every individual is different. Their learning abilities and understanding is quite different. So it's one of the drive that pushed me in that they find it very difficult to deal with it. It takes lots of time, it takes a lot of work, it takes patience. Most people don't have that. We take a lot of things for granted, and these children are going through a lot.
You must have seen, heard, or even know at least one person, one child, or one person with autism. Well, did you know that the medical condition known as autism has actually been changed to the term autism spectrum disorder? Yes, it was changed in 2013 by the American Psychiatric Association from autism to autism spectrum disorder. And guess what? I know you don't have to guess. It is affecting more and more of our children every single day. It is estimated that worldwide, about 1 in 100 children have autism or autism spectrum disorder. In Nigeria, the country where I live, where I reside, the prevalence of autism is estimated to be 1 in 88 children, according to the World Health Organization, WHO. A lot of us, so many of us, not just in the rural communities, mind you, even in the urban communities, even among people who are highly educationally aware, my people. Many people, most people, don't know about autism or autism spectrum disorder. They claim autism is a demonic disease. It is witchcraft. Imagine people saying behind your back that you and your spouse used your child who actually has autism or autism spectrum disorder. Imagine people saying behind your back that that child, you guys used your child for ritual or satanic purposes. You used your child to make money, and that is why the child doesn't behave normally. That is why the child behaves abnormally. And even though the World Autism Awareness Day is marked in the month of April 2nd to be exact, every single year, and yes, I know that we're in October currently, October 2023. Today, I'm going to be asking this superhero you're seeing on your screen, Aisha Idrisu, who works with not only children with autism or autism spectrum disorder, but also persons generally with disabilities. I have a long list of interesting questions for her about her work with autism and children with autism spectrum disorder in Nigeria, because Aisha Idrisu is one of the few Nigerian women who works with persons with disabilities in Nigeria and also children with autism or autism spectrum disorder in Nigeria. Hello, I'm Dr. Hadiza Marilia Suleiman, your favorite holistic reconstructive surgeon. If you'd like to join this conversation, I implore you to just write down your messages, your questions, your comments, any useful information in the comment section below. We'll be thrilled if you join this conversation. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video to people that you know will be interested in, and subscribe to the channel. So Aisha Idrisu, I know for a fact that you studied fine arts as your first degree in university. So, I mean, how did you become interested in working with children with autism or children with autistic spectrum disorder? Or how did you become interested generally in persons, in working with children with disabilities?
Um, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Um, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to my audience all over the world. Well, for me, being an artist, it was just part of what I really wanted to do. As being an artist, just part of what it's just a chip of what I wanted to do. Um, when I was in my 3rd year, I remember when we had the class, and one of our lecturers mentioned to help the elderly. So I got interested, and for me, it was something that I had dearly, because I didn't see myself being a typical studio artist. Although I love doing working with children, working with individual, but I knew there was more into art. So I think I was in my 2nd year in university. I remember my sister asking me to do a sum of 6 digits, and I was wondering why she asked that. Fast forward to my younger sister told me, she lived in America and she just came for the holidays, that Aisha, do you know that you are dyslexic? And I looked at her because I knew I was struggling as an individual, and art was a means of communication, which I really I found myself. So in me, I knew that there were a lot of us out there having such challenges. So after I finished, I graduated, and I became an art teacher. But I still felt the void in me, that there was more than just being an art teacher. There was more than what I needed to do. So I came across a child. I call client was a child that was blind, and the blind child was struggling to understand what art was. So I couldn't communicate with him by using colors. So I had to bring the, and as he was touching them, I was teaching him how to identify what they were. And he said after it, because with his sense of touch, you communicate directly to the brain to tell him that, okay, this is a square, this is a cubeboard, this is as the time went on, I kept on having more kids on the spectrum. So I worked for that particular section for a while. Then I moved to another school, which exposed me more to work with kids on the spectrum. So being so when I was opportunity to work in a school, the school didn't observe me directly, so I volunteered to work in the special needs unit. So I remember the director asked me, Miss Aisha, why would you like to work with children on the special needs? I said, and people not understanding where people don't understand you, and they don't understand where they are coming from. She later told me that she had goosebumps by my response. And immediately I got into this because I know how it is to struggle and not being understood by the people around you. So that was part of my life's journey, and it was part of me trying to help people.
Yeah, so, but I know that you began with actually teaching children art, children that have autism spectrum disorder. You began teaching them art, but what really inspired you to pursue a career in that, apart from what you mentioned? What really inspired you to continue to be, to be dogmatic, to say that, look, this is what I want to do for life? What was that inspiration?
What inspired me is that I wasn't given, I was misunderstood by the people around me, my parents. They felt that we had therapy where where we knew that there was something, that this child was not like the rest of, was different from the rest. I was different from my siblings.
Hmm.
So because for me, I was struggling. My parents saw it like I was not smart enough, that I was not, I could not respond fast enough. They did, and they did not have the patience to understand what was going on. They just believed that, okay, she's not smart enough. Put her at the back. Need others to respond fast. Is one of the things that actually was a drive in me, that every individual is different. Your level of understanding is different, your level of communication is different, and what child A can respond to is different from what child B and child C can respond to. That learning abilities and understanding is quite different. So it's one of the drive that pushed me in, that I could use my art as a tool. Because what art does for an individual, it creates a means of understanding things differently from others. People that are more creative, more art inclined, have a faster way of learning. Mathematics becomes a very easy tool, science becomes a very easy tool in a field that you need to really have analytic thinking. Art does that for you. It gives you an extra room to think, as they'll say, inside and outside the reason that was a drive for me that pushed children to the adults that needs art as a means of tool. It's not just a tool, it's a I call it the master subject, because with art understand mathematics, it gives you room to understand science, biology, it gives you room to understand algebra and all the complex subjects that children struggle with in school.
Thank you for sharing that inspirational story with all of us. I'm sure many of us can relate because as we were growing up, we were all different in our own individual ways. Now, could you please share a memorable success story from your work working with children with autism spectrum disorder?
Yes, I remember I had a session with a child. My director at that point in time asked me, Aisha, the parents are interested in their child learning art. Could you be kind maybe to give them like homeschooling? I said, yeah, sure, why not? So I think there was a particular day we had our sessions. There was a particular day I went in the morning, and I noticed that this particular child had autism, and the parents had this hope that he would automatically navigate from his autism into being like a normal child. In most cases, it's always heartbroken for most parents. They find it very difficult to deal with it. But for me, I understood that it's going to be quite a journey for that child to come close to, but not exactly what's close to. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of work, it takes patience. A lot of most people don't have that. That particular day, I went to my client to the house, and I saw him holding a dragonfly, and he waited for me to come. He was waiting outside in the garden. Immediately, I drove into the house, and I came out. I noticed that he was holding something, and I asked him, "What are you holding?" He smiled and he was looking at me, and I said, "Oh, you're holding a dragonfly." He said he was going and draw this thing. So he kept on drawing. He was not getting it. He kept on drawing. He was not getting it. He started getting agitated and started getting upset. I said, "Calm down. I know you can do it. You know you can do it. Calm down, look at it again, and so drew the dragonfly and smiled with a so much hope and light in his face. And I said, "You see, you can do it." And he nodded his head. He nodded his head. So for me, that was more of what it was fulfilling. He was fulfilled, I was fulfilled.
Yes, the case of the teacher teaching the student and her being so excited because she was able to achieve something positive with that student. It gives every teacher that happiness, that, that joy that you've imparted something positive in that child. Aisha, have you heard of stimming before? It's a terminology used to describe some people, some children that exhibit it, children that have autism spectrum disorder. Stimming is actually, for our viewers, it's self-stimulatory behavior. It's seen in children with autism spectrum disorder, as I mentioned before. It is like repetitive or unusual movements or noises that are repeated by that child. And these actions or
Mm-hmm.
noises or movements could actually be harmful to that child. Let me give some examples of stimming behavior: pulling the hair, pulling the hair, pulling the hair repeatedly, repeating words or phrases, rubbing the skin or scratching the skin repeatedly, painfully. So, I mean, stimming seems to help some children with autism, some autistic children, and even some teenagers manage emotions and cope with overwhelming situations that they find themselves in. Have you seen it before, Aisha Idrisu? And, how did you cope with that situation? How were you able to take that child out of that situation?
I've seen stimming in several cases. I remember we had an episode while I was still working at my formal institute, where at the center we had a girl. She was in her, I think I can remember, I remember very well. She was in her 20s, and she was having her period. She was non-verbal, but she used her tongue. So she was repeatedly pinching herself and then pinching people around her. She was trying to communicate. She was going through pain. So that was the only way she could actually express that she was going through pain. So she was pinching herself with so much she would pinch. And those were very painful because she was going through, and she was making so much noise back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I came into class. We're supposed to have an art session. So her therapist said, Miss Aisha, we can't have art now. I said, what's wrong with her? She said she's going through her period, and when she is at that stage, she exhibits that part of her stimming. So we had to wait for a couple of minutes, but she was still not responding. So she was taken out of the session, and she had to go home earlier than she usual because it was getting a bit out of control. I had another case of another student, and he was, I think, he had an episode. I think something happened that he got very angry. So I didn't know. I noticed him standing against the wall. He was going back and forth, back and forth. So I went to talk to him. He was quite big and huge, and I was talking to him, um, like trying to understand what was going on. I think he got very aggressive. He used his fist and hit me on my head. My
Wow.
colleagues saw that, quickly pulled me away and said, Aisha, he's going through some episodes. Please leave him alone. So we had to isolate him. And then one of our therapists came. She kept on speaking. She kept on talking to him, to calm him down. It took him like 15 minutes before he validated. The episode of a child that kept on repeating. He was stimming. I think he was repeating his words. He kept on repeating several times, repeating. So we had to address him that he should stop repeating, that we understood what he wants. He kept on saying that he wanted to go out. I want to go out. I want to go out. We kept on telling him, you can't go out because it's not time yet. Kept on repeating, I want to, like, kept on repeating, kept on repeating. So we distracted him a bit with some toys and stuff that he likes. That, so we distracted him for a couple of minutes. He was distracted and he calmed down and he was okay. So sometimes it does help, and sometimes it's trying to. Sometimes it does. When they steam, it's trying to. Why they do that is they are trying to tell you that they are going through a negative emotion or a positive emotion. But whichever way, they need attention. Please attend to me. I'm going through this. I can't automatically explain this is what is going towards me. Plus, please attend to me and please be patient with me at the same time, because you need to be very patient with them. Because in some cases you'll be wondering why they exhibit such character, but most times if you really look and you are observant as an individual, because funny enough, a lot of therapies are not that patient. But if you have so much love for kids that are going through the spectrum, because I would say from my own experience over the years, it takes patience, it takes love, it takes compassion to work with them, because you can actually be in the field of you can actually be in this field and understanding and tolerance to work with kids on the spectrum. It takes a lot. It tolls a lot on this therapist. It tolls a lot on individuals. It takes a lot out of the parents. So as I said, it's just being patient to understand them, and actually when you see that they're getting out of hand or they're getting too aggressive, you need to pull them out of that environment immediately.
Yeah, so still in line with what you've been saying, I mean, what are some of the unique challenges you face when working with autistic children in Nigeria specifically? I know what you talked about before
Oh,
is applicable to all children with autism spectrum disorder worldwide. But in Nigeria specifically, what are some of the unique challenges that you have faced while working with autistic children?
in Nigeria specifically, um we have some of us have this dogmatic thinking that it's our maybe our relatives in the village, maybe our enemies are the one that caused our children to be in that format. So sometimes some parents actually don't make matters easier. It becomes even more difficult, because when it comes to such environment like where the center I worked in, they believe that the teachers should handle everything. They should make that child normal and come back close to normal. Then we keep on talking. Some of them don't really get it, and some can really not fathom, why can't my child be like any other child? Why can't my child talk, speak? And we keep on telling that this child it's like this child is born with this, and you have to be very patient to actually deal with such children. You have to take it step by step. And when you find parents that they are very even worse, because they are not understanding, or they are finding it very difficult to understand, because they are comparing this child with other children, or they are having this idea or fantasy that this child can be like any other child. And having all that makes things very, very challenging. Education is very key. So where I worked actually offered therapies for parents. But then again, not all parents go for it, because therapy helps, because you are dealing with a lot emotionally, mentally, and physically. It's a lot. Now, another thing is that having a child being autistic at 2, 3, 4 is different. That's when it's a child is age, and when that individual also is an adult. There are stages, and each stages presents its own challenges, because as a little child, that he or she has feels that he doesn't understand what's happening. Some of them at the same time can be like some of them might not even respond. But even in the case of not responding, it takes years. Not as if they are assimilating, but in little doses. So it takes years for them to actually. You might be teaching them. Let me give an example. You might be teaching them how to clean the table, for example. It might take them another 2 years to actually for them to actually hold the dust and know that, okay, clean the table, because we actually teach them normal chores for the day. Brush your teeth, clean the table, take your plate to the kitchen. Those are normal things that we take for granted. So most of these children, they don't know how to do them. Another thing I notice in my society as a Nigerian, we need more education. We need to educate our people, because people, we don't have facilities for them we don't have facilities. We don't have enough facilities. We are trying, but we don't have enough facilities. We need more facilities. We need We need more medical facilities. We need governmental facilities. We need more education to explain to general, because even having April 1st as autism awareness all over the world, it's not enough.
Second.
It's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. Because let me be honest, if someone has the means, that maybe has the means to look after a child with autism, they are actually they are financially draining. If someone has a means to take care of a child with autism, so now someone that is struggling financially, it's going to be a lot of headache, emotionally, mentally, physically, and financially. If you don't have that means to look after such children, you will end up into so many issues. Because some of them can tell you, oh, I'm hurting. I have a pain on my back. Oh, mommy, please scratch my hand. I don't know how I can't, because those are the simple things. We take a lot of things for granted. And these children are going through a lot. Being children, be it on their things, be it in their adulthood. There was a case that happened when I was still working in the center. There were two siblings that they had autism, and they were the mother came to them one day. She was driving home. So she put she was driving. She drove like about for like 10 minutes. As she was driving, her son, who was autism, grabbed her at the neck and was strangling her. She had to manage. She was not laughing because she was happy. She was laughing because she was scared, because her brother was like going through some episode. Now, what happened prior to that? We noticed that the brother fell from his bed some few days before that, and he was going through some physical pain. He could not relate that to his mother, that the fall he had from his bed, he was on a bunk, the high part of the bed, and he fell. That the pain he was going through, he had not actually healed from it. He was going through the trauma. So by holding his mom from the neck, he was trying to explain to her in his own way he could, but in a physical aspect, that I am going through pain. Please come to my aid. The mother had to manage herself to pack. She quickly called the school I was working in. They had to quickly send two therapists, the male therapists, to come and handle the issue. So a couple of days afterwards, they had to take the young boy, he was 15, to the clinic, and they had to check him, and I discovered that the fall he had an impact on him which he couldn't communicate. So there's actually a lot. There's actually a lot. So education goes a long way, because you have to educate the community, you have to educate schools, you have to educate the government need to be educated, the society itself and in a whole has to be educated, because we have them in different areas. It's very sad in a country like mine. In some places they use them to make money. Sometimes the ones that they can, sometimes they are, I'm sorry to say, they are sexually abused because they cannot express themselves. There was a summit I attended online. It was organized by GT Bank last year, 2022. There was this lady. She came to talk about her autism. She has reached adulthood. She was an American. She was sharing her experience. I think she was in the medical field. She later on said she was telling her story, how she struggled over the years of being an autism individual, but you wouldn't know because she spoke eloquently. She had gone through several series of therapy, and which of course a lot of people back home here don't know that. As I said, it's financially draining, it's emotionally draining, and it's something that you have to keep on it. And we don't. I to a certain extent, I don't blame the Nigerian government, because we don't have the facility, and even those that have the facility, they end up let me say misusing it. Instead of helping, they create more harm. So the lady, let me go back to the lady. What she said was, as a child being an autism, she was molested by someone that was very close to her. because she could not relate and communicate that back. It was something that was she had to go through. So it's when eventually she could able to communicate, because it stays with them. They start acting funny, they behave funny, and you wonder what's going on. So she said that she was going through that for a long period of time to eventually she could able to come out after, of course, series of sessions, a series of therapy, and series of so many things, countless hours, months, years. She could be able to identify, tell them that this is what she went through and this is the trauma she went through individually. So, as I said, and I'll say it again, we in our society, as in Nigeria, for example, we have a lot to do. We have a lot to do, and I wish, I hope, I know the government are trying, but honestly speaking, we can do more. We can do more. I would suggest, for me, for those that cannot afford those therapists, those treatments, I would wish if there was a body, an NGO, because the government cannot do everything, could like give them a certain a month. They could go if they have maybe speech, like for example, people that have speech impaired, they could go for they could go for therapy once, twice a month for free. Those ones that have maybe those ones they cannot communicate. They can also have those kind of therapy, because there are different forms of therapy. If they could have like free therapy twice, I would just say twice or once a month. It goes a long way. It goes a long way if the government and we have NGOs that can come up with such, because a lot of, as I say again, it's not only there are a lot of people that are struggling financially. They have kids, and I've met some. Interacted with a lot of them. They complain they don't have the means to look after these children because they are just trying to manage their day in and day out life. And after the COVID, things has come all over the world has become financially more expensive. And imagine that you have to like cope with a child with special needs. That's a lot. Because another thing again, which a lot of parents don't know, sugar is a big no for a child with autism. Sugar is like cocaine for a child with autism. Giving a child with autism sugar, any form of sugar in maybe hidden sugar in bread, biscuit.
Can these children with autism or autism spectrum disorder, do they go to the normal average schools that every other, should I say, normal in quote child goes to, or do they have special schools, or can they go to schools where the average kids go to and then interact with them at the same time while having their own special classes, probably, formally, while maybe interacting with them, maybe on the playground or otherwise? Because I'm aware that in some institutions, they have that sort of model. But what have you come across in your work with
So
children going to
in,
autism?
in my work I have actually come across both. There are some parents who prefer their children going to a full institution that is autism based, one on one. And then some will prefer to mix their children with schools, with the normal schools, which of course maybe in some cases some might have their own therapy, some might not have their own therapy. But from my own experience, I would say that the child should go to a normal school, because that helps the child to able to relate with everyone and see. He might not able to communicate properly, but he might see how everybody relates. That is one part of development. Then he might spend some couple of maybe like 2 or 3 hours among the normal kids. Then they will normally you have a therapy that will pull when it's time to pull the child out, take him to the center where it's center of that's full up with kids with on the spectrum. Now at that point in time you're pulling that child out. Now he knows that now I'm no more in the center of where my other kids are. I'm in where the other now I'm with kids that are like me, because that awareness needs to be created. It's very important. It helps for this development. Some kids struggle to deal some kids find it very difficult when you put them in the environment where they are normal kids. because some of them might have ear sensory issues. So that noise gets to them. But when you remove them from that environment and put them to their own environment, then they are used to with their own autism colleagues or friends, it's fine with them. But I would say both makes a lot of difference. But you should just limit the hours of the exposure of putting them with normal kids, because you cannot with normal kids, because it's like you cannot disconnect them from the society. Putting them with normal kids makes them to integrate into the society with ease, because if you disconnect them from that, you're disconnecting them from society, and when they get into society, it becomes they become overwhelmed. They start reacting in ways that you cannot control in some cases. That is why for I have seen over the years it's preferably to integrate them with normal kids, but limit the hours of exposure. So when as time goes on, you can increase.
Yes.
And if
Yes.
it's not
And I
working
think
for them,
yes.
then you just
And I think because it's a spectrum, it ranges. The varying behaviors seen in children with autism spectrum disorder, they vary from the very mild symptoms and signs to the very severe or very extreme symptoms and signs. And so by exposing them
exactly,
in varying degrees to
exactly.
the normal environment, you are able to sort of acclimatize them to society. And at the same time, it also helps, normal children to acclimatize also to those special needs children. Because if they see them in another environment other than the school environment, they'll be able to relate with them, and they'll be in a position to also explain to other people, the kind of children that they are, and that they need, special care, because that is what makes the society function better, I think. So let me just talk about some facts about the autism
And,
spectrum disorder.
and
Sorry.
another thing is that it's not only for the autism. Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add something. Another thing is that it's not just only for the children for the autism. It creates awareness in the society. Children understand that okay, we have this child is different from me. For example, I know my nephew, one of my nephews in school, he has a friend that has autism. And among all the kids, that particular child picked my nephew because he was caring and understanding. What a lot of kids could not see in my nephew. They became friends because my nephew was
Yes.
attentive to him, caring, and helps him with what he needs and communicates better. So sometimes these kids are very so intelligent that they are emotionally sensitive that will understand them to a certain extent. That's just just adding that to it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very, very true. So let me just talk about some facts about autism spectrum disorder. We know that we may have heard that it's a neurodevelopmental disorder affecting the brain, and it affects about 1 in 68 children in the United States of America, with more and more children being identified more than ever before every single day. And this disorder is
Exactly.
about 4 times more likely to occur in boys than girls. It affects children of all ethnicities, all races, all socioeconomic groups. So you'll find a
Yes.
child with autism in a poor family, in a moderate social status family, in a very rich family. You can see it in everywhere. You can see it all over the world. You can see it in Nigeria, in Europe, in Asia, in everywhere really. And it also affects, of course, all races, the Caucasian, the Hispanic, the African, you see it everywhere. And so we can't run away from it. We have to face it. We have to know how to live with it. We have to know how to react to people that have such disabilities. I mean, some of the common challenges that we see in children with autism or autism spectrum disorder, include, we've mentioned some of them before. Aisha Idrisu has mentioned some of the symptoms and signs that we see in children with autism, but they include hypervigilance. They sometimes seem shell shocked. They seem to have phobias sometimes. They seem to have that predisposition to being, in this extreme state,
Is it?
as if, they're children that have been exposed to a war-torn sort of state. That is what is used to describe the terminology shell-shocked or hypervigilance. Then they also have these avoidance behaviors. They seem to avoid, interacting with people. They seem to have difficulties integrating themselves into society with other people, to talk about normal things, to do things that other people seemingly refer to as normal things. They have rigid routines and they're resistant to change. They have that self-injurious behavior or stimming behavior. Sometimes they have controlling behaviors. They have meltdowns. They can be defiant, and they can totally even shut down completely. So, what educational or therapeutic approaches have you found, Aisha, to be particularly effective in your work in dealing with these sorts of behaviors in children with autism spectrum disorder?
Um, as I art goes a very long way. But then again, when you're speaking about art, when you say art, you just there are different sections of it. I deal with the visual aspect about art. Music is another aspect. Dance is another aspect. My section, which has to do with the painting and all that, is another aspect. And then some of them like writing. Some of them do write. Those the one that they can communicate better, because if they maybe they are 50-50. Some of them are maybe 60-70. It depends. Those ones they can communicate better. Some of them like to write. Some of them like to read. And then, as I said, the aspect of art is varies from one to one. I remember, so from my experience, if a child is good in painting, you need if a child is good in for example swimming, sports, you need to help that child. You need to give that child to develop in that aspect. Whatever traits or interest the child shows, whether it's swimming, singing, painting, you need to help that child to develop in that aspect, because it helps them in their own cognitive thinking. It helps them better. If they like to sew, give them, I would say, give them wings, encourage them to become better individuals, because once they do what they love, they act better, they behave better, they communicate better in any aspect. Once they are doing what they love, they become better individuals. They don't
That's
get agitated easily. They don't have meltdown easily, because they are more they communicate better.
Yeah, yeah. Can you
And
describe a situation where
sometimes
you had to? Oh, sorry, I
you need
thought
to
you.
actually if they reach a certain stage and they see things differently.
Okay. So, can you describe a situation where you had to advocate for a child's rights or inclusion in a mainstream setting, like in the normal mainstream setting that we have here? Did you have any situation whereby you had to advocate for a child's rights? Maybe you felt the child was being cheated in some way, at whatever level. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had to advocate for a child's rights, a child who had autism?
Not really, but there was a child that he didn't like painting. He didn't like that stickiness of paint on his face. It's not meant to be here. This child is not meant to be here. This child needs to be in a place where they play music, where because he loves to sing. This child needs to be where they play music. Then my colleague comes and says that unfortunately for that child, the parents are not interested. What the child is interested in, they just want him to become like any other. Children reach a certain stage, they start showing you signs of what they are interested in. It's always sad when parents don't pick it up to notice that I want to paint. I want to. I love running. I want I want to dance. You need to have a sensitivity to listen.
Yes, yes. As with all children
If you
with
have that
disabilities,
sensitivity to listen, it
we
makes
do
it
have.
more easier for you to be able to communicate with them better.
It's interesting to note that children with disabilities, persons with disabilities, usually have some special skill, and so we need to be able to identify it as practitioners that work with special needs or persons with disabilities. And the children also have a major role in identifying, what special ability, what special skill that child has, and then encourage the child in that, line, so that they can improve themselves better and then be able to function as, as an individual on their own. So according to the World Health Organization, that's the WHO, people with autism, children with autism, often have this co-occurring conditions like even epilepsy, depression, even anxiety disorders, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, as well as other challenging behaviors like difficulty in sleeping, and of course the stimming behavior that we mentioned. So they have these children and persons with disabilities that have autism spectrum disorder have challenges with intellect, with their learning abilities, and also, as I mentioned before, the social communication. So, Aisha, let's briefly talk about Elon Musk. I know you are asking why the thumbnail for this video was showing you with with Elon Musk. I had a reason. I just wanted to impart that to make people aware, as you know already, that hey, I want people to be aware that yes, Elon Musk actually has, you know, autism spectrum disorder. He has a type of it. It's a spectrum, as I mentioned before. It varies from the lowest to the highest level of autism spectrum disorder, depending on
Mm-hmm.
the symptoms and the signs that they exhibit. So let's briefly talk about Elon Musk. Our lovely listeners, did you know that Elon Musk,
Okay.
yes, has autism spectrum disorder? Yes, he does. What are the signs, do you think, of Elon Musk's autism diagnosis? Well, Elon Musk has been known to make blunt and direct statements, sometimes even without regard for how these statements will be regarded by others. He has also been known to struggle with sarcasm and humor, which are often used in, social situations. We all know that when he took over what is now known as X, it used to be known as Twitter, he changed so many things in the organization. And some people might just say, oh, he's maybe a bit, you know, maybe he has a few loose nuts up there. But actually, since we know that he has autism spectrum disorder, he has a type of autism spectrum disorder, which is known as Asperger's syndrome. That actually is the cause of Elon Musk's eccentricities. So, what is Asperger's
Asperger's
syndrome?
syndrome.
Yes, people with Asperger's syndrome are now diagnosed as having, a high functioning form of autism spectrum disorder. Now, these people, just like Elon Musk, are considered to have good cognitive thinking abilities. That means that they think, they think well, they reason well, they have
Yes.
good mental judgment, and they also have good remembering skills and also language skills. However, they still experience difficulties with communication, social interaction, just like him, and also they show some repetitive behaviors. So that's just little, just something I wanted to mention about Elon Musk, because I mean, that would make people think, oh, wow, really? So even such individuals in the society that are like high
Um,
ranking
um,
have such, they can even,
People.
this kind of level, this sort of, level in the society with, autism spectrum disorder. Yes, Aisha, you have something to say?
Yes, I do, because having Asperger's syndrome, which is high level of autism of reasoning, they find it difficult to filter. They don't understand sarcasm. They are honest to the core. They don't understand what is the need. They don't see the need. Why? Because of lack of this, their level to think like others, like them, just like the norms, which is not the norms. They see a lie like it's a no go area. Why will I say or think or do things different than it should? why should I call an egg green when the egg is yellow? Or why should I? They don't. Their brain is not wired. Their brain is not wired in that format to see things. They just see white is white, black is black, and there's no gray. They don't understand there's a gray. That's most
Yeah.
people with Asperger's syndrome.
Yes, as can be seen in him. I mean, you've mentioned some of the cultural factors that impact the way you approach your therapy. As you mentioned before, in our society here in Nigeria, there are a lot of traditions that are ascribed to, children that have autism or autism spectrum disorder is thought to be something that is cultural, it's traditional. Maybe those children are that way because of some things that have been done to the family, some things have been done to that child, or they think that it's a taboo because maybe some spirits have actually affected that child, some cultural taboos. So how do those cultural factors impact the way you approach your therapy? Because some parents might bring a child for therapy, but they may still believe in those other things. So how do you now approach managing such children and such families? How do you support these
Well,
children with spectrum disorder? And how do you collaborate with such families to create an effective
the way I work,
for these children?
or the way I work with individuals is like what I do is I normally observe the behavior of an individual, whether it's a child that has autism. I try to zero my mind from all stereotypes that surround, because in most cases it has a negative impact than more of the positive impact. Parents have that ideology that maybe it's some uncle or some auntie, but most times they don't we don't come to that level of discussing that auntie, that uncle. But if they do, what I normally say is that each child is a work in progress. They just need to be patient or it takes. I always I'm also blunt, which I think a family of mine said that um, if somebody is dying, you just don't go and tell somebody that the person is dying. For me, I don't like. Why will I tell you that somebody is not? Why will I tell you that somebody is going to survive? Yes, is heading the way is, maybe it's going a particular way. So what I do is like I try to be honest as much as I can with the parents. I give them my own opinion, and what if it's and I leave it open for them. So it has worked for me over the years. So I don't if they have their own beliefs, I try and make them understand that I can't really say, but I can tell you that this child might not be acting on that particular beliefs that you have. This child may be acting on a particular. Just be patient to understand that this child is acting differently from what you have at the back of your mind. But in most cases, we don't normally discuss. I just work with the child one on one. They don't really share their beliefs with me. I just give them a hint of what I believe that in the long run, this is what we are looking at. And in the long run, if they are patient enough, they will heal results, but it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, so we have to keep in mind as what health workers that work with children with autism spectrum disorder and with persons with disabilities generally, that there are specific cultural sensitivities that you have to keep in mind while working with families of various different, diverse backgrounds. So, viewers, I still implore you, if you have any questions or anything to say, please do write it in the comment section below. Join the conversation. We're all here to learn. We're all here to impart knowledge. We're all here to make the world a better place. So we would appreciate your input. And, we know that you've had a lot of experiences working with autistic children, Aisha. And I know that it has had a lot of influence on your perspectives on working with, neurodiversity. I know that you understand neurodiversity so well now because you've worked with children that have, autism spectrum disorder on maybe on a mild level, on a moderate level, and on a severe level. So what kind of resources and support do you think are needed to improve the quality of autism care in Nigeria? You've mentioned them already before. At the beginning, you mentioned governmental support. NGOs. I know that I did a lot of research when I was preparing for this presentation, for this live session with you, and I realized that there are actually so many non-governmental organizations that work with autism. I'm sure that they're effective all in their own individual way. I know that the government too have their own organizations, but what other ways apart from what you mentioned before, let's say free speech therapy, free behavioral therapy, can help in improving the quality of autism care in Nigeria? Are there any other ways that you think autism care can be improved in Nigeria apart from what you've mentioned before?
Awareness, awareness in the radio, awareness in the social media as much as we can, because people still act ignorant to the kids. The other day, I went to the supermarket and I noticed a child was having a meltdown, and he was talking to his mom, and the mother was hugging him. A couple of minutes later, I was very close to, I was maybe chanced to be very close to the child. I noticed that this child was not, I noticed that the child was on the spectrum. And there was another lady close to the mother of the child, and she kept on saying, yeah, you are spoiling your child too much. And the mother said, my child has autism. I looked at her and I told her, your heart. I know it's not easy. I work with such kids. I know how it is. Awareness in all forms of an awareness. We need it. A reminder to the social, to the public, that they should not be that a lot of people are insensitive. They don't understand this. They push they put out hurtful remarks. There are so many cases that some of these individuals got lost, and then they were on the streets. Some of them use them as, okay, we are ritualists. Some of them are even as taken as workers to work in houses without the parents finding their whereabouts. So awareness goes a very long way.
Yeah. Yes, so it's all upon us to address these misconceptions and stigmas that surround autism in the Nigerian community.
Yes,
The education, as you mentioned
yes,
before, awareness plays a major role in creating a more inclusive society for autistic
yes,
children, autistic individuals, and also persons with disabilities. You've talked severally about all the examples of particularly challenging situations you've managed, that you've encountered, and how you've managed those situations. And I encourage all of us to do such. Now, Aisha Idrisu, what advice would you give to someone considering a career in working with children with autism, individuals with autism, and generally persons with disabilities?
I would say, I remember I read a book, funny enough, written by by what do you call it, Donald Trump. He said, which was a quote I took. Personally, I don't really like Donald Trump. For me, is a peculiar individual. Um, he said, "Work where you love." It means he's trying to say that be passionate about what you an avenue because of the financial gain. You will never be happy because it's emotionally challenging, mentally challenging, and physically, sometimes physical challenge. There are times that some of these individuals will attack. And we have had cases where we had therapists that some of these kids have bites their chests and they have to be hospitalized. There are so many that, and then vice versa, and which it comes to a very messy situation. So you have to have a lot of compassion. You have to be patient. You have to love what you're doing. You have to you have to be sensitive and tolerant. Those key points are very important when you're dealing with this, because they are human in the end of the day. They need to be understood, and you need to be very, very, very patient with them. It takes a lot out of individual because it takes a lot out of their parents, because the more you show love, and the love is very understand. Love is a tool that is very 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 addictive, not just addictive, very how would I put it? Not effective. It has a way of like effecting, very effective. So I'm not using the right. It's very like contagious. Love is very contagious. If
Yeah.
once you exhibit that love, it's understood. They understand that you love them. So once they see you, without even saying anything, they run. They go to you. They hold your hand. They hug you because they know you love them. So they will understand that you love them. So they will exhibit more and give more because of the love you show to them.
Yeah. So we need to make sure that we tailor our approach to each child's unique needs and strengths, isn't it? So how has your work
Yes.
evolved over time
Yes.
as you've gained more experience in this field? How has your work evolved from the beginning to present? What are you currently doing now? Are you specifically honing down on, a specific aspect of working with children with autism? How has your work evolved over time as you gained more experience in this field of working with children
Um,
with autism?
as
And
for me, to be honest with you, I was speaking with you the other day that I wanted to pursue. Funny enough, with all my experience, educating myself, I needed to pursue more. I was like, I wanted to pursue a higher degree in the field of working with. I won't just say autism in general. Working with people with needs, persons with needs, because it's a very broad um it's a very broad space. It's and the challenges are very, for me, very interesting. Yeah, it's very challenging. The more challenging it is, the more I'm more absorbed, I'm more interested in it. So for me, I'm not stopping here. I'm not stopping here. I'm still thinking. I'm working on going more further. I had the chance 2 years ago to work with with people with the elderly. That's geriatrics. So when it comes to this field, oh, we have a lot to give. There's a lot. So it's not just about the money aspect. There's a lot we can do. There's a lot we can give. There's a lot of it. So I am definitely, I'm going further. Maybe in the near future I'll have my own NGO. I'm not too sure about it, but for now, I'm just going more into more on the educational aspect to develop more and more, and to maybe have maybe, who knows, maybe a PhD. But for now, I'm just going to for maybe a master's in the field of art therapy.
that's lovely. So, for you specifically, still, I mean, are there any specific cultural practices, traditional practices, or even religious practices that you've incorporated into your therapy sessions with children with autism spectrum disorder, or even while you're working with the families of children that have autism spectrum disorders? Are there any, like, specific, practices that you yourself have incorporated in your therapy sessions with them, or in your management of these children or their families, or any religious practices that have helped, that you've seen have helped?
Honestly speaking, okay. Honestly speaking, cultural practice, no. Oh, sorry, being a Muslim woman, definitely, you know that being a Muslim, you can't do anything without um bringing Allah, Almighty Allah to the platform, because he knows everybody's individual strength and weaknesses, and I know deep inside my heart that if not for his guidance and pushing, I know I won't be doing working in this particular field. So normally I would have, maybe if I have a challenge in front of me from my own point of view, I would have put Almighty Allah first. I would have asked his guidance, asked his insights how to go about, because as I said, every individual is different. You don't they are onto they are, maybe they might be under on an umbrella, but even norm as human beings that we are, everybody is unique. So I asked for that inner intervention so that I can be able to approach that individual uniqueness in the unique way he or she is. So it has really helped him. Having that spiritual connection has really helped me to push forward, and I've succeeded, alhamdulillah, in so many ways.
Alhamdulillah, that's really nice to hear because, all of us have, our own beliefs, and our beliefs can be either good or bad, but we believe that, the good beliefs will outweigh the bad at the end of the day. And then those good beliefs will help us in moving forward, in helping people and helping the society move more forward, better, make people better in the society. So Aisha Idrisu, I
Yes,
noticed that there are a few centers in Nigeria that cater to autistic children, as I mentioned before. Yes, NGOs, even banks. You talked about a particular bank that you worked with some time back. I'm aware that some banks, even as part of their corporate social responsibility, they have this social presence in the society. Are you involved with any of them? You've mentioned a bank that you're involved with before. I know that recently this year, earlier during the World Autism Day, April 2nd, 2023, a bank actually held their 13th autism conference where they invited a variety, array of, panelists to talk about autism and, to talk about the awareness surrounding autism and autism spectrum disorders. And they also are doing a lot of things, and they're quite consistent in this. So, I mean, have you in any way worked with them in any other way? And then what other initiatives or projects are you currently involved in to raise awareness on your own about autism in Nigeria, apart from programs like this?
um actually, to be honest with you, I have attended GT Bank, is one of the banks I know in Nigeria that is very active with the autism program. They help individuals, but I don't know if they help to build foundations. But most like what GT does, to my best knowledge, is that they create awareness, and then individuals come on board whenever they have a 2 day seminar, and different people from different parts of the world, even Nigeria and different parts, they come to talk about the experience and how to handle children with autism and what to eat and how to nutrition value and all that. No, I am not involved in a bank directly, but I attend their seminar whenever they are available, maybe once a year. And for me, as I currently said, I am working on a program with so that I could give more back, most I can give back more to my society, because I was opportunity to work in a center even without being having a educational background, but knowing how it is, as I said earlier, being dyslexic, knowing how it is was, as the dyslexic individual, was easier for me to integrate into the system with ease. I didn't see myself as an outsider. I saw myself like one of them. So it was very easy for me to communicate easily.
Yeah.
So that is why it was, I didn't, even till now, I still don't see myself as an outsider. I still see myself as one of them. So it's always very easy for me to identify any, if you're on the maybe or have autism, yeah, whichever, or you're on the spectrum of whatever form of spectrum you are. I don't know, for me, I just know it in my guts that this person is different. This person is different, and it's always easier for me to communicate very easily. I don't know how to explain it, but the best way I can explain is that it's just instinctively I can just really understand, integrate, communicate with
Yeah.
them easily, with no barrier whatsoever.
Yes. So it's such an emotionally draining activity, isn't it? Working with with children with
It
autism
is.
spectrum disorder. Yeah, so how do you balance the emotional demands of your work while still maintaining your own, well-being? Apart from, yes, believing in Allah, believing that this is your life's work, trying to, praying to Allah to guide you while you're managing these individuals, based on their own unique strengths and weaknesses, bearing in mind that they have autism spectrum disorder. But how do you balance your own emotional demands while still maintaining your own, well-being, to, in order for you to work, to the highest level of your ability with these children and persons with disabilities?
So what I normally do, I have this policy. Once I come home, I leave work behind. I don't carry work with me because once I step out, work is work, and once I come home, so if I don't do that, it affects me emotionally and mentally. So I have to disconnect. I disconnect myself. I disconnect myself for a couple of hours, a couple of till I reconnect back. So it helps me to connect with me emotionally. I want to give back better. So that disconnecting once I get home is what helps me to be able to deal better. Yeah, there are times sometimes I go online and get more information, but I always have a very good mechanism of disconnecting myself so I don't get overwhelmed, over tired, and over everything. So it's and then once, if I want to relax, I paint. If I want to relax, I find a means of activity. I do an activity I love. I paint, I cook, or maybe I watch TV or go to the movies. So that's my own form of relaxation. So that helps me to regenerate my ability to work effectively in my own community with my clients that have such challenges.
Mm. That's lovely. That's really, really lovely. And when you talked about you also having a disability, how you discovered you had a disability, you had dyslexia, and that also spurred you on to work with persons with disabilities. How have you been able to manage your own disability, your own dyslexia? How is it now compared to how it was some years back when you first discovered that you had dyslexia? And what has helped you over the years in managing your own special condition that places you as a person too with special needs?
Very good question. As I said, when I discovered in 2006, and when I did, I know I cried for 5 minutes because it's like now I understand why I was going through what I was going through, because I did not understand what was. I knew something was wrong, but I could not connect. So when I did my own I like to do a lot of research. Anything new that comes my way that's been thrown to me, I like to do my research. I don't take it on surface level. I like to do more in depth. So what I do every day, which has helped me over the years, I read every day. I go on motivative sessions. It might be a video, it might be a short movie, it might be a talk. So all this has helped me to build myself emotionally, because there were times I had low self-esteem. There were times I was struggling with myself. There was time I was shying away from the public because of my dyslexia. But I had to tell myself, I had to push myself out there and I know it's hard, but you can do this, because there are people out there. They need you. You need to be out there for them. You need to be a help. The people need you, so you need to be out there for them. So you can do this. If you can cope yourself, if you can handle this, you can handle any situation that comes your way. It has been a life struggle, but I thank Almighty. It has been okay. Funny enough, I have a niece and nephew, and I have some of my family members. They are also, they have dyslexia, and I remember my sisters were talking, were saying, ah, Aisha must have gone through hell because she did not have any support. But imagine, they are there now for their kids. They're giving their kids that support. I didn't have any support from my family. They didn't understand me, and they felt that I was not smart. They felt that I was just weird. I was just different, and because of it, it has redirected my whole course of life to a different channel. It took me a very, 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 very long time to come where I have full friends. Right, there were few of my family that have stood by me, and I'm so grateful to my mother, and I'm so grateful to the Almighty, of course, first and foremost, that I've gotten to where I am today.
That's fantastic. So, viewers, I mean, I know that you found this revelation from Aisha Idrisu very interesting. Yes, anyone can do it. Anyone can, can improve to become a better version of themselves. And so, finally, Aisha, what future developments, what have you seen that has been ongoing, let's say in climes other than here, has been working in the field of autism support that you think you would like it to be replicated here in Nigeria? What is currently being done apart from, yes, raising awareness, seminars, media, social media? What is something new, something innovative that is currently being done in the field of autism support that you think you would like to see work here as well? And if you have any ideas on how that could be achieved here in Nigeria.
Um, I believe some families are doing it. Um, you should not isolate them from the rest of the family members if they are in the family or they are in schools. You should make them do chores like any other. You should treat them as if, don't treat them as if they are different. Make them feel comfortable being around us. Make them feel at home. That's the short words. Making them feeling at home makes them to connect better, making them to respond better, making them to handle situations when you are not there better. Because I always feel for parents, sisters and siblings, that I also feel for parents and individuals and families that they have such children and such family members among them, because my mind always say, when you're no more, who's going to be there for that child? So for parents, you need to check, for parents, if you have a child that has autism on the spectrum, whatever form of it, you should train your other child to be sympathetic, caring, and kind. That when you're no more, you are in charge of that child. You should create an environment where the parents don't say, if I'm no more, my child. This was a family. We know this lady, and that was when autism was not aware. I think to be precise, I think I was 12 years old, and we had this family member that she was a very famous lawyer, and she was well known, and she had the child on spectrum. We didn't know at that point in time. People understood that the child was not normal. That was the stigma that went with the child. But when I had to, years afterwards, when I thought about it, because he kept on repeating his words, he was autism. Very handsome young man. He was like 15, 19 years old. So I think after some couple of years, we heard that he died. Not so late after that, the mother died. So there was a rumor that maybe the mother had something to do with death, and she also also, we're not too sure if she also because she died naturally, or she also committed suicide. We're not really sure, but the rumor was going around. Because for me, I thought that she might be going through the agony that if anything happens to me, what's going to happen to my child? And that's what happens, because they are co-independent. That is why if you have a family member, they should make I would say key awareness, not it's for me, because I've seen it time again and again and again.
Yes,
Family
in fact, when I
members,
was, yeah,
neighbors, the child needs to be in to a family members, individuals, neighbors should be, the child needs to be independent, because a child died of autism because the mother died some parentage 2 days before. That was about sometime last year. The mother had died and the child died of starvation, not of any sickness. So making that child independent to a certain extent, a family member being in charge of that individual, makes it easier for them to able to deal with society, because a lot of them are dying not because they don't understand, they are dying because lack of care, lack of that attention, that okay, so person, and it's so sad, it's
yeah,
really heartbreaking.
yeah. In fact, when I was reading about, when I was researching for this interview, I read about, the terminology, the glass child. I never knew it existed. That is, in families that have a child that has autism spectrum disorder, they have children who are also affected by the autism spectrum disorder indirectly, being that because that
Yes,
child with autism is, so, should I say, not really pampered, but so to speak, but the parents, the family tend to dwell more on that child that has, this medical condition, that they tend to see through the other normal children in the family. So the child feels as if he's unwanted, he's unloved, because they're seeing right through him and they're just seeing
exactly.
the child with a disability. So all hands must be on deck, really. It's not just one person that should be involved in taking care of patients or clients, people with disabilities, children with autism spectrum disorder or autism. It's everybody, so that the society can function, as near normal as it should. So, my lovely viewers, I hope you have a lot of questions and comments after this long talk. I hope it has been insightful, educational. We urge you to pass across the message. Support all the people that you know, all the children that you know, all the adults that you know with autism spectrum disorder as best as you can. And indeed, all other persons with disabilities. Let them have access to behavioral and other clinical therapies. Link them up to people that you think can help them. You can drop, your messages in the comment section below if you'd like some links to Aisha Idrisu and any other, modalities of treatment that you'd like to know about here in Nigeria as regards autism therapy, even internationally. We welcome any comments, questions, and any input. Aisha Idrisu, we appreciate your involving and creative work with persons with disabilities, including what we've talked about today,
Thank you.
autism spectrum disorder. And we would love to have you again later on the Medical Information Channel. For our lovely viewers, listeners, forward this video to your family and friends if you got any value from this video, and like and subscribe the Medical Informational Channel. I'm Dr. Hadiza Marlia Suleiman, your favorite holistic reconstructive surgeon. Thank you again, Aisha, for honoring
Thank you.
this.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure,
We look forward to having you again, inshallah.
and I hope everybody, okay, that will be of useful to them from in all ways possible.
I'm sure it has. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so